Welcome everybody to another Kim Kennedy Library Zoom event. This evening we are presenting Microsoft Excel with Mike Gardiner.
Hello. Okay. Well, let's get started. Okay. Spreadsheet. Originally, they wrote out spreadsheets on grid-lined sheets of paper, kind of like the stuff you might find in some college notebooks. And they'd line the numbers up and then take a calculator to it and start crunching away to get various figures. This could get very impractical after a while. Even in the early days of spreadsheets, a spreadsheet could be told to recalculate, and it could take sometimes hours. These days, they're pretty fast. Really big complex sheets might take a couple of seconds, so time delay isn't really the problem it used to be. So you can use them for things like planning a household budget, projecting expenses, or automating calculations that you might need for this, that, and the other. So now as for starting Excel, that can vary. And yes, it's been a while. It's been a while since I created this presentation. This is from older versions of Windows, and this is from 7. And way down here, if you're seeing this, would be on Windows 10. And you would just find whichever you needed lurking. If it's not readily obvious, you could start typing Excel and just click this. I've already got one running, so I won't be doing that. You can create a shortcut on the desktop. Right-click on the Excel and the thing and say Send Desktop, and it'll stick a little icon on there for you. Now, your basic Excel spreadsheet. We have your title bar. This is the tab portion of the interface. This is the ribbon bar. When you click these various tabs up here, this ribbon will change to whatever is relevant to the tab you clicked. There are so many options that they decided to group it this way to make it easier on people. The cell name box, you may not pay attention to this, but it gives the location on the grid, and you can alternatively give a cell or a group of cells a name for use in calculations. So instead of referencing cell as B5, you could access it as expenses or what have you. Formula box just shows you what formula is displaying the value you see in column headers. A through, I'm not sure how many Z's you can get on this thing. Row headers, which is down this side, these can go many thousands deep. These are the actual cells. Tabs, status bar, and a horizontal scroll bar. And in this case, I can very practically show you here all these elements. Title bar, when you give your sheet a name, it will show up somewhere up here. And I think my portion of that screen is blocked by something from Zoom. So your tabs, you'll notice as I click them, the ribbon changes. So that's how that ends up working. Cells, as I jump around, you'll notice the cell box changes to point to this collection. New person, and she's beside herself, at least on my display. So this gives you the grid location of the active cell, or if you've named it, whatever name you've given it. We're not getting into names here, but it's useful to know that's possible. You can look at it. Unless it's important, in which case we can cover it now. So tabs, each of these is a separate sheet. So you can have, that's why they call it a workbook. And if you need more pages, you can add them. So, So moving to another cell, you can either use the arrow keys to move around. If you enter a number or any other text, you can just hit enter and it jumps down one. And you can always go to a cell just by pointing at it and clicking on it. So going up and down pages are the page up and page down keys, which is only evident by looking over here at the numbers as they jump. And of course, I already showed you clicking tabs. And now, you can have multiple workbooks open. They will usually turn up down here, and if you have multiples running and you hover over this on Windows 10, you'll get one of these windows for every open sheet, or every open workbook. So you can have those and jump around. So there's that, and that's pretty much it. A workbook is just a collection of one or more sheets, and you can have multiple books going at a time. Now, useful features in Excel: undo and redo. Undo will let you back up when you've done things. So they keep moving this stuff around a bit, so I'm going to type a few things. And if I can find where they put the undo and redo in this edition. Now, usually it would be a small left-pointing arrow like this to undo. It remembers the last 100 changes you've made. And so let's go take a look. Okay. Well, one thing though is if the arrows are, here it is way up here. Shows how much attention I've been paying lately. So here you can either hit the arrow one at a time, or if you do this pull down, you'll see it has a list. And as you go down the list, they highlight. You can hit the thing to back up one at a time for the arrow. And or if you do the pull down and there's still multiples, you can just go down to where you want to stop, hit it, and everything in yellow will be backed out. Now another option is redo, which remembers the last up to the last 100 things that you undid. And you'll notice the arrow goes away, so we can back all the way out and do this, and you'll see that. Now, the one thing to keep in mind with the undo and the redo buffer is that redo remembers the undos until you make a change outside of the undo redo settings. So if I do this, you'll notice immediately the redo went gray. So now it doesn't remember any undos. But those are useful editing tools. So is this making sense? If nobody says anything in the next 5 seconds, I'll assume that it worked. This was understandable. Okay. Now, help is accessible by either hitting the question mark, which is over here, or hitting the function 1 key. So once you do that, it will ask you, it will send up a thing, and you can I think that's what I said we were doing here. Mover copy formula. Oh, I almost had it. Fumble finger. Okay. It brings up, oh yeah, a little note from Microsoft. They're winding down Excel 2010. Now, most of what I'm showing you will apply to newer versions of Excel, so you shouldn't have a problem. If you've got 2016, you should be okay. Now, as for help, we asked it about mover copy of formula, and we got this here. We can click on this, and it gives us these various things: move a formula, how to copy and paste, and so on. So basically, you can ask Excel help questions about what you want to do, and it'll give you step-by-step instructions to a degree. And one thing I will tell you is that if you can't get something here, you can go to online search engines such as Google and Yahoo and so on and ask your questions. There's no point trying to use Microsoft Bing because it's integrated into this already, and if this didn't answer your question, Bing doesn't know the answer. So now, closing a workbook, I will just demonstrate by popping a new one, and this is how you create a new workbook. You'll click on the File tab, click New, and this brings up what they call templates, which are essentially, in some cases, framed empties that contain data that you can just fill in. For most of the time, you'll probably just be creating a blank workbook. You do create, and it does this. And now, if you're done with a workbook and don't want to do anything else, you can just say File, Close, or Exit if it doesn't have that. They change that periodically as the inputs adjust, or as they revise versions. But you can say Exit, and this tried to exit the entirety, so we're not going to do that. So, but the other thing you can do, oh, there it is. Yeah, I know I sound a little daft, but it's been several months since I've done one of these, and I don't use Excel that much. So yeah, that one, we'll create a new one, and then yeah, just File, Close. We'll close the current sheet that you're on, or you can come over here and hit this X. This one is for the sheet. This one is for Excel as a whole. So anyway, there's that. Now, renaming a tab. Let's go do that. And this is what I was talking about. If you hover and have more than one workbook open, you'll get these with thumbnails. You can see the itty bitty bits of text that map to the page up here. Now, if you want to rename a tab so that it's more relevant than sheet 1 and sheet 2, let's see. We click, we say rename. I can call it budget, and now that tab is reserved for budget work. We could have another tab that could say vacation planning or what have you. And that way you can have several related sheets with a description of what they are. provided I can type. So we have that. So that's more interface basics, really. Now, this is where we start getting serious on the things you can do. If you have Excel, you can just type these into your open copy. And initially, you're going to want the results to look like this. Don't worry that some of these things are cut off because they're too wide. That can be fixed later, and we'll deal with that. So, now usually I would be doing this up on a screen at the front of the class. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to see if it will let me. Yes, I think it will. I'm going to try a quick copy and paste and see if it lets me get away with it. Oops, okay, that didn't work. All right. Well, okay. Well, what you can do is just start typing these things in at these locations. And what I'm going to try doing is a little bit of mucking about so that you can see while I'm doing this. And once again, can't type. And then I will stop and wait once we're done with this, so don't worry about keeping up. Okay. Now, we'll wait a minute while people catch up. Ah, yes, okay. Let me put this back and then jump and there. So yeah, you want to enter these and have it look like this. So we'll wait a minute, and then when you've caught up, just unmute your mic momentarily and let me know. Okay. People catching up. People talked and forgot their mic is off. Okay. Let's see. I saw a thumbs up on Cassandra, so I'll take it that she's done there.
You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. If everybody's good, then all right. Oop. Heck. Okay. All right. Now, for a lot of stuff like this, there's this nifty little formula called Autosum. So what we're going to do is go back down here. And up here we have Autosum. So what we'll do is we'll hit this. Now, what it's done is it looked around the cell, found these numbers, and said, okay, I'm going to assume you want to add all these together. Now, the problem is, this is an expense figure and this is income, so this won't work. Now, if you're doing summing and you do want to add all this stuff up, that's fine, but in this case, it doesn't work. So what we do is we'll click here and drag across to this figure, and this is the last of the expense figures. We let go and hit enter, and it'll give us this $2,020 figure. So we have the adjusted. Now you can use Autosum to subtract values as well. So say Autosum, and then click that. And then I can type the minus, and then click this and hit enter. And we've got this. And did I do something? Let me check my figures here. Yes. Okay. So what we've done here is here's the number you're being shown, and this is the formula behind the number. Now, if you wanted to, you could have skipped this whole equals something and just type equals C5 minus J5 and hit enter, and it would have done it. So some people prefer to do it that way. Others prefer to go the summing system. So that's this option here. So now we'll go on and you might need to change a number, and this is where things will, the spreadsheet becomes really useful. So the income is half of what it was, so we change that to 2,000, and when we hit enter, you'll notice this figure changed immediately. It calculated through, and we're a little short for the month. So the So what we'll need to do in order to at least break even is we're going to cut back on the entertainment budget. Oop. We're going to come here, change that to 80, hit enter, and you'll notice now the income has gone from being the net income has gone from negative to 0. So we broke even on the month. So there's that. We've adjusted an expense to balance the budget, and there's that. So now, custom lists are a handy thing lurking in Excel. And say we've got the January and so on. There are ready-made lists of months in Excel so that you don't have to type them all in by hand if you don't want to. So what we'll do, there are a couple of different ways to do this. So one would be, let me check my directions again because, yes, okay. You make your selection. So you click on here and drag down until we hit, I think that's enough. If it's one too long, I'll deal. So you then come over to Fill, select Series, say Autofill, and click OK. Ah, yes, I did go one too far. And what it did is it saw the January, and because one of the regular lists stored in Excel are the months of the year, it projected forward and filled into the down 1st of December, and then because I went one too far, it went back to January. So that's one way. Now there's another way we'll show you, which is there's this nifty little thing. If you look at the box very closely, see this dot in the lower right corner of the cell pointer? That's called the fill handle. When you hover over it, the thick white cross cursor becomes a thin black cross cursor. If you grab that and start dragging, it does a form of autofill, and it will tell you what that cell is going to have in it when you let go. And there we go. So that little square down there is called the fill handle, and it can be used for lots of nifty little tricks. We'll show a couple of those in a bit. So now we can still do the autofill, and you can do the same thing as you did before, but you can also use the fill handle for this. So what we do, we want these formulas to expand. So I'm going to do this, grab the fill handle and drag it down. And what it's done is it's brought over the formulas, and you'll notice as you look, it's adjusted the letters for each position so that it, when you add numbers here, they'll add up this way. And so that's a quick way of filling in data when you don't want to have to type things over and over again. And as long as you're using these kinds of formulas, this neat trick works. So now it can also do things like it'll fill in months, days, and dates in order if you've got those highlighted. And it can also fill in increments. Now, we'll show you in one of these other tabs. One, two, and that's really all you need if it's a fixed interval, so you can start dragging across, highlight that, and then drag, and it will fill the interval. Another thing is that the reason you highlight the first two in the series is to tell it what your increment is. Now, if I drag this one where they were they're half value apart, you'll notice that 1.5, 2, 2.5, and so on. So, yeah. And it can do Mondays, it can do days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, and so on. Same thing. And you can also fiddle with dates. So you can specify 2 dates a week apart, and if you fill them that way, it'll continue to fill in the dates at 1-week intervals till you stop. So now, inserting a column. We need to add an additional expense item to our budget because we forgot something. So we will come back here, go to column E, click it, right-click on it, and then hit Insert. Now this is giving us an empty row. And for this, the dreaded student loan. And we'll put 100 in for that. And now we're in negative funding again. Now here's the thing. When you insert a new column or row as applicable that is not at the end point, and maybe even at the end points it'll be smart, but definitely if it's in the middle somewhere, the capture formula expands to include the new cell. So you can, so this automatically grabbed the new number and calculated it in. Because if you'll see this, this has changed. This formula used to end in J5, now it ends in K5. So there's that. It's and you can also delete a column or a row by highlighting the column and saying delete. So that would be right-click, and I'm not actually going to do it because we need this, but you can say delete and that column will disappear. And rows work much the same way. So, all right. And yeah, feel free to speak up at any time with a question. Formatting. This is a way of prettying up your data. It doesn't change the underlying data. So you can think of formatting as a sort of a pretty overlay that just you're viewing it through a filter, but it doesn't change what's there. It just changes how you see it. So there are 2 ways to do formatting in Excel. What we're going to cover here is direct formatting. There's another feature called styles, which gets covered a bit in the next edition if we get that far. So most of the things you'll want to do with formatting can be done from the Home tab. The major font and color options are available in the font section, and so on. So what we'll do is come back here. We'll go to the My Budget, and I'm going to make the text red and fill the cell with yellow as a background. Kind of an ugly mess, but it demonstrates the point. And you can select font sizes, colors, and so on. And say I want to throw in italics just for giggles, and then the font will make the font Just a little different. And again, it's spilled out over the cells. This can be this gets fixed later. Oh, is this making sense? Any questions? Okay. And yeah, you can tell which side of my screen the thing is on because I keep looking over to people's spaces. All right. Now here is where we'll deal with formatting columns, because if you're feeding a number into a cell and you get this, it means the thing is too wide. For text, it will simply bleed into the next cell unless the cell is occupied, in which case whatever's in that cell will overlay the expanded text. So what we can do is we'll select all columns from B to L by clicking and dragging. And then we will pull down Format and Auto Fit Column Width. Now, what that little shortcut does is it says widen each column in the selection to fit the widest thing in it. So in this case, the size for column B was set by my budget. The size for here, this one was total expenses, entertainment, and so on. It just widened them to fit. Now, one thing that can be aggravating is that sometimes this formatting will stick and other times it won't. So sometimes if you can change things and the column width will dynamically change, other times it's stuck, in which case if you get something too wide or too narrow, you can just repeat what I've done. I wish I could tell you exactly why the thing does one way sometimes and another way the other times, but I haven't figured that out yet. But there's that. So this is a quick way to pretty up the sheet and solves the problem of your text being overlaid by next door text. So, and yeah, the other thing you can do as well is you can manually, by bringing the cursor over the boundary, if you click and drag, it changes the shape from the right edge of the cell. So you can widen it or narrow it as you need manually if nothing else is working for you. So now, auto-summing columns. This is a nifty trick. We'll make a cell selection from C17 to L17. And then we'll click Autosum. And you'll notice that it reached up and grabbed these numbers. Now, what isn't obvious is that these are sum formulas, and if there were other numbers in here, and we'll be adding some, they would be included in the total. Right now, because it's the same up here, because it's all either blank or zero. But you can sum columns the same way by highlighting it, and it will simply reach around looking for numbers and make a guess based on what it finds. So here we have this. Now, I'm going to show you how to bulk format cells, although this works just as well on one cell at a time. So we're going to go from cells C5 to L17 and basically highlight, and these are the cells we want affected. And then we can select format and look for currency. So here, format, and here we go, because I used this, they changed it since I did this. So There are, fortunately, you can come down to format cells if they don't have the ready-made icon, which today, for some reason, they don't. And we can just select currency and hit OK. And yes, now this is here, the auto fit wide is sticking for whatever reason. So it automatically widened to accommodate the fact that some of the numbers made the columns wider. But you'll notice now we're neatly formatted dollars, cents, and commas where numbers exceed 1,000. And negative, you can optionally use a version of the currency that will render negative numbers in parentheses and in red, or possibly both. Just something accountants do. Most people won't want to do that, but it's there if you want to follow the accountant's habits. So here we bulk formatted the cells. I could have just clicked on one cell and done this and treated just that cell, but this way I was able to do the entire sheet at once. So we now have our dollars and cents. Yes. Now, just to show you print preview, since if you do these sheets, you'll probably want to print them, is a neat trick. In the old days, you had to ask for this specifically. Now, File, Print, and what it does is the preview is now automatic over here. It's showing you that this is what your thing is going to look like if you print it now. And you'll notice that the sheet is too wide. So one way of getting around this is you can change the orientation of the paper. This range here is called portrait, which derives from the way portraits were actually painted. And this is called landscape for the same reason. If you ever pay close attention, and now of course you'll spot it because you've been told about it, portraits are always narrower and taller, and landscapes are always shorter and wider. So, well, most of the time anyway, there can be exceptions either way, but the general rule is portraits are made the taller and the landscape is made wider. You'll notice now that we almost have it. More of the page, this fits on one page, but there's still a column hanging off on the next page. So another option you can do, this isn't practical if there are lots of pages, but if you have one page that just doesn't quite fit and it's a near miss, you can come to scaling and just click on fit to one page, or fit all columns on one page, or rows. That'll vary. Generally, this only works if it's a near miss in this case, fit sheet on one page. It rescales the font sizes to make it fit, so it shrank the fonts a bit. And the other possibility is you could also have increased the margins, but now you have your thing, you've got all your net income and all that, and you can just go ahead and print this, and you have your budget sheet for the year neatly printed on one sheet of paper. So we won't actually be doing the printing, but the option is there. So any questions? I'll take that as a no. All right, creating charts. Now, a chart is basically a graphic representation of your data. So what I'm going to do is we'll highlight our range and we'll make a chart. So C4 to D16. Okay. And again, it's been too long. I'm having to come back and yeah, sorry, it's on the insert tab. We select insert. And from the chart, we can select a column chart. We'll just select a standard 2D chart. And what this has done is it has, and you can drag this chart out of the way since it's popped up over the thing. It's showing us what these numbers are. Now, the neat thing is that this chart is live. You can add more data. You can, let's say, let's add $300 here. We have a new bar down here. We can change this to another value, and the bar rescales. And you'll also notice that it automatically took the headers and assigned them to colors, telling you what they are. And here it goes month by month, but it's just giving you the row numbers because we didn't include the months as headers. Now, this way you can have an easy to reference chart of your numbers, and it's a live chart. You change these numbers, these bars change. You can also make any number of other kinds of parts, pie charts and whatnot. This is just a simple example. So now saving a workbook, that's pretty much the usual thing as in anything. You can say, you can click File, oops, sorry, went off screen there, File, and you can say Save As or just Save. If you've already named the file, either by having loaded it or having saved it with a name, this would just save it out for you. If you, if it doesn't have a name, it like the same way Save As would, and then it will stop and ask you, what do you want to call this and where do you want to put it? This is the section where you navigate to where you want it to go, and this is where you give it the name. So again, I'm not going to do that for this, but that's how you would do that. And you also have the floppy disk icon if you want to save. So yeah, for those who haven't been at it that long, this is a historical artifact. A floppy disk is the closest modern equivalent to a floppy disk is the USB stick. So, but way back when they first made Excel, they had these things, and so that's what the icon, that's what that button actually represents. This is magnetic storage in a plastic sleeve and would store data. So some, you may have known that, you may not, but I find a lot of the younger ones have no clue. They just know that that's the save button and they don't know why. Anyway, there's that. So here we go. Yeah, the obsolete storage technology. It's there for inertia reasons, and the last time I checked, even 2016 still used some variation of a floppy disk icon. So, and since we didn't have a lot of questions, we got through that awfully fast. It's only coming up on 8 o'clock. Does anybody have any questions on anything we've covered? Something that you want to know that I didn't address, or what have you? Or things that weren't clear, and now that I've run out of stuff, you can ask questions. Okay, I'll take that as a no questions. So, all right. Well, for the moment then, I'll just jump in here and throw in some more numbers just to chart change. And this change was so short it doesn't even, the bar doesn't even show. That one worked better. Okay. Alrighty then. I guess if there's nothing else, we can, Rob can do whatever the closing routine is.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for a wonderful presentation. Again, this will be on YouTube along with our other presentations that you can look at. So thank you for joining us. And
One last thing, if you have questions, write this down, and you can send me an email note, and I'll try to answer.
yes, you can also email us at dhreference@gmail.com. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.